It's just a day, isn't it? The 15th of July. Well, this 14-episode TV series is about exactly that. We watched the same day occurring between 1988 all the way up until 2007. This show was most definitely an emotional ride, as we followed the two main characters, Emma and Dexter, as they navigated post-university life right up until parenthood, whilst they were also trying to work out what they truly meant to one another. With an extremely emotional ending and some real powerful things to take away from the show, I thought I'd break down and explain One Day whilst also sharing what I thought of it. Here is One Day ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained. I'll start this section whilst referencing what was mentioned during the start of the final episode. So we started by seeing the Christmas of 1988, where Emma went and stayed with Dexter for a weekend, something which we only ever heard of happening and was referenced and didn't see at the time. And it was here where we heard Emma mention about how the day that we die is sly and unseen, and that once a year we pass it in the same way that we pass birthdays and other anniversaries. However, we just don't know when that specific day will occur, so it essentially lies dormant until it actually happens and then takes on the form of your death day. It's something which is very bleak, but it's true. And in sticking with the theme of the show, as it was all about one day, the day that Emma died was on the same day that the whole chain of events started, the 15th of July. During this final episode, we predominantly followed Dexter as he was navigating the emotions that he was going through due to the loss of Emma, the one person who he ever truly loved. We saw that in 2003 he was struggling due to it being 1 year since she died from being hit off of her bike due to a reckless driver. There was a moment where he was walking through his parents' house after he was picked up by his father in 2003, and he was essentially seeing the weekend that he spent with Emma playing back to him, reminding him of that happy time. But it ultimately resulted with him sobbing in his bed, a moment which was really upsetting to watch. Then it was in 2004, and we saw that everybody who ever truly loved Emma went round to Dexter's house so that he wouldn't be on his own, and they all had a toast for the memory of Emma. There were a couple of moments in the 2004 timeline which tied back to when Emma was with Ian, and the idea of grief, moving on, and no longer hurting, and how it connected to Dexter. Ian had travelled all the way from Somerset to London, which was about 3 hours, so that he could be there amongst everybody else to celebrate the life of Emma. There was a time where Ian said to Emma when he last saw her before he walked out of their flat for the final time, where he wondered if he'd ever stop missing her, and she said that he would. With us hearing how Ian went on to have a wife and 3 kids, it showed that the pain can stop. This was also the case in the conversation that we saw between Dexter and the spirit of Emma in the final episode when he was talking to her. She mentioned how he'd drink, end up hungover and feel awful for doing so, missing her every day, until one day he'd just wake up and not feel like that anymore. He'd still miss her, but the pain would no longer be there, and he wouldn't have that stomach-sinking feeling that he had at that specific moment. Kind of like what happened with Ian when he was finally able to move on. After this, it then cut to 2007, 3 years later, when on the 15th of July, instead of drinking himself to sleep on the anniversary of Emma's death, he went to Edinburgh, visited the university where they both met, and we saw the day that they met flashing before his eyes as he looked on at the same location, but almost 30 years later, showing the happiness that he once had with her and where it all started. But now he was with his daughter, Jasmine, showing that it didn't hurt like it once did, and that he'd now started the process of missing Emma in a different way that wasn't focused on the pain. We actually saw moments in this episode that we didn't see in the first when the events were being relayed back to us. For example, Emma said how she didn't want Dexter's number, she didn't want postcards from wherever he went to when he was travelling, and she didn't want to marry him or have his kids. However, that one day in the calendar that she spent with him kickstarted the happiness that she got to experience, most of those things that she said that she didn't want to, and also the love that they didn't know was inside of them at that time. There was a quote that Emma read out from Dickens at Tilly's wedding, and it's so crucial to the story. Imagine one selected day struck out of your life and think how different its course would have been. Think for a moment for the long chain of iron, or gold, or thorns or flowers that would never have bound you but for the formation of the first link on that formidable day. If the 15th of July 1988 never happened, and if Dexter and Tilly didn't bump into each other when all they said was sorry and no problem, both of their lives would have been completely different, as their paths wouldn't have ever crossed in the intimate way that it did. And also, they wouldn't have gone on to have built a life together. showing the importance and the difference a singular day can make. The final thing that we heard in the show was Emma saying that she didn't want to be remembered as a footnote in Dexter's life story. This was before we saw a montage of them kissing across every year and then kissing on the steps as Dexter in 2007 saw it in his mind, showing that she wasn't the footnote, she was the main character and the main event of Dexter's life. Nothing was ever going to come close. With it cutting to black as that happened, it just allowed the emotions to hit and for the weight of the landing to really cut through. Dexter was no longer grieving in a dangerous way, but he was able to feel and appreciate the love and time that they had with one another. Whilst this show was specifically focused on one specific day occurring every year over the course of your life and how if it was removed, who's to say what would happen and how your life would be different, what it also got the message across was that you should live your life to the fullest, because you never know when that day that lurks there in the background that we pass every year is going to come out and become the day of your death. As we saw with Emma, it can be unexpected. Overall review. I thought this show was just beautiful. I'm a sucker for an emotional romance show at the moment. I didn't really care for them much when I was younger, but I don't know whether it's with age or what, and I'm not even that old, but they just seem to hit so hard when watching them at the minute. I genuinely felt the weight of the emotions every single time that one of the main characters was feeling it. I'd watched the film in the past before from 2011, but I actually quite liked this more drawn out, longer approach, because you got to understand the characters a lot more and see how each one of them changed the other. The transformation that both Emma and Dexter underwent over the course of the show was something which genuinely felt real, and there were some real mirrored moments in there too. For example, when Dexter was this hotshot TV presenter and he visited Emma inside of the restaurant that she was working at. And then on the flip side, later on in the show, when Emma was this hotshot writer, she went and visited Dexter when he was working in the coffee shop and didn't have that level of fame anymore. The love and feelings that were there between Emma and Dexter were infectious, and you just wanted them to be together because you knew that they were right for one another. I thought Ambika Mod and Leo Woodall delivered phenomenal performances. I really bought into the characters, and it's the first time I've seen Ambika and the second time that I've seen Leo, and they both absolutely smashed it. It's hard to make the audience go on a journey with you, root for you, feel things towards you, and also feel for you too. And whilst that does come down to the writing, a lot of it also comes from the performances, so I commend them for that. I really felt like we saw these two people grow up with one another. They matured, they developed, and they went through hardships, but they came out okay on the other side when they needed to. The scene of Emma's death was one which was really sad to see. The way that it was executed, with the rain occurring on St. Swithin's Day, something I don't actually remember seeing on any other one of the days across the 20 odd years. As they said, if it rained on St. Swithin's Day, then it would remain for the summer, and it did, in a metaphorical sense, as the rain represented the death and horror that then plagued Dexter's life moving forward. This show painted out the harsh reality, yet also the beauty of life at the same time. Love, death, happiness, upset, excitement, birth, marriage, and many other things. It's the events and emotions that everybody basically goes through all throughout their life. I'd highly recommend this show to watch. Although it's got 14 episodes, which is quite long, I didn't actually mind it because I got so immersed in the story and the way that it was told. Some episodes are 20 odd minutes and others are around 40, and I think that's the right balance, especially with 14 episodes. Go and give it a watch if you've not, and if you have, then let me know what you think in the comment section below. So, there you have it, One Day Ending Explained.